Just wanted to do a quick video on the book of Lamentations. Lamentations is neglected in one sense, and often rejected by the church, and in another sense it's focused upon quite heavily because of Lamentations 3. But the question I really wanted to deal with is, what do you do in suffering? Lamentations was a book probably written by Jeremiah, and it was written after the exile, after Jeremiah 52, after 2 Kings 25, after Israel sinned against God and they were exiled, the temple was burnt down, the walls were broken down, and the people of God, most of them, were shipped off to Babylon. And in this book, Lamentations, it speaks about the absolute gruesome nature of what God did to his people. There was starvation, and in Lamentations 4:10 it talks about there was so much starvation and so much insanity in the land of Israel that parents were actually eating their children. There was that much mayhem going on. God had extended the full-blown punishment upon the sin of his people. But what's interesting in the book of Lamentations is, in the midst of the suffering, because of their own stupidity, Israel's own stupidity, and Israel's own wickedness, in the midst of that suffering, where do they go? Lamentations 3:21 says, "But this I will call to mind, and therefore I have hope." And listen to what he calls to mind. "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will hope in him." It's interesting that in the midst of suffering, in the midst of this great sorrow caused by their own sin, Israel is called to think and hope in the grace of God. If you're a Christian, you've probably all suffered for the sake of your sin. In fact, the sin that we do commit often brings about suffering. What can we do in the midst of our suffering because of our sin? Look to the grace of God. Look to the wonderful grace of Jesus Christ. Actually, Lamentations is actually very similar to the book of Job. Job suffers, but Job is blameless. Job has done nothing wrong, but yet he suffers, and Job looks to the grace of God. Here in Lamentations, Israel has sinned. They've even admitted that. In Lamentations 5 verse 7 it says, "Our fathers have sinned." And then later on it says in Lamentations 5:16, "We have sinned." Their sin caused God to punish them and to pour out his anger upon them and cause them to suffer. But yet in the midst of all that, we're called to look upon the grace of God. So if you're suffering, maybe because of being a Christian, look to the grace of God. Preach to yourself the good news of Jesus Christ. But if you're a Christian and you've sinned, you've done something that's a doozy and you're suffering, still look to the grace of God. The book of Lamentations is a wonderful book that we should get acquainted with. It speaks about the sovereignty of God. Like it says in Lamentations 5:19, "But you, O Lord, reign forever. Your throne endures for all generations." It also speaks about the holiness of God. In Lamentations 1:18, it says, "The Lord is in the right. Everything that the Lord does is right." And it also speaks about our sin, where we need to acknowledge our sin and our rebellion against God. And we need to cling and call to mind the grace of God, which points us to Jesus Christ. Thanks for watching.